Jean Valjean, a man shaped by a life of poverty and hardship, lived in a small village in France. He took care of his sister and her children, but as their situation grew desperate, hunger became a constant threat. In a moment of despair, he stole a loaf of bread to feed them, only to be quickly arrested. Sentenced to 5 years in prison, his repeated escape attempts extended his sentence to 19 long, grueling years. Prison hardened Jean Valjean, filling him with anger and bitterness. When he was finally released, he carried a yellow passport that labeled him as an ex-convict, making it impossible for him to reintegrate into society. No one offered him work or shelter. One night, cold and hungry, he found refuge at the home of Bishop Myriel, a kind-hearted man who offered him food and a place to sleep. Still consumed by distrust and desperation, Jean Valjean stole the bishop's silverware and fled in the night. The next day, he was caught by the police and brought back to the bishop's house. To his astonishment, the bishop not only refused to accuse him, but claimed the silverware was a gift, and he even gave Jean Valjean 2 silver candlesticks. This extraordinary act of mercy left a deep impact on Jean Valjean, igniting a transformation within him. Determined to leave his past behind, he resolved to live an honest and compassionate life. Under a new identity, Monsieur Madeleine, he moved to a small town where he built a successful business and eventually became the town's mayor. His hard work and kindness earned him respect, and he devoted himself to helping others. However, his past continued to haunt him, especially with the relentless Inspector Javert, a strict and uncompromising police officer, hot on his trail, determined to see him return to prison. During this time, Jean Valjean encountered Fantine, a poor woman who worked in his factory. Fantine had an illegitimate daughter, Cosette, whom she had left in the care of the Thénardier, an innkeeper couple who mistreated and exploited the girl. When the factory discovered Fantine's secret, she was fired, plunging her further into poverty. Desperate to support her daughter, Fantine fell ill, and before her death she pleaded with Jean Valjean to look after Cosette. Honoring her dying wish, Jean Valjean set out to find Cosette. He discovered her living in miserable conditions with the Thénardier, who forced her to work as a servant. Jean Valjean rescued her by paying the Thénardier a large sum and brought her to Paris, where he raised her as his own daughter. Under his care, Cosette thrived, and Jean Valjean, for the first time, experienced the joys of fatherhood, finding purpose and love in their bond. Despite the happiness he found with Cosette, Jean Valjean never fully escaped his past. Inspector Javert continued his pursuit, driven by his rigid sense of justice. Jean Valjean lived in constant fear of being discovered and returned to the life of a prisoner. As Cosette grew older, she blossomed into a bright and beautiful young woman. She eventually met Marius, a passionate revolutionary involved in the political unrest sweeping through Paris. The two fell deeply in love, but Jean Valjean, protective and fearful of losing Cosette, initially opposed their relationship. He didn't want her drawn into the dangerous world of revolution. However, seeing Marius's genuine love for her, Jean Valjean eventually gave them his blessing. Marius and Cosette married, and their happiness brought Jean Valjean a sense of peace. He had spent his life trying to atone for his past, and seeing Cosette's future secure filled him with a quiet contentment. In the final chapter of his life, as he lay on his deathbed, Cosette and Marius were by his side. Jean Valjean passed away, with a sense of fulfillment knowing that the girl he had saved and raised was now loved and safe. His journey from a desperate, broken man to a selfless, honorable one had come full circle. Jean Valjean's story is one of redemption, showing how love, kindness, and the courage to change can transform a life. From the depths of despair, he rose to become a man of compassion and sacrifice, dedicating himself to the happiness of others and finding peace in the process.